back and being the most amazing co-host. We are just, I'm a little nervous today. This is my third time on using a new streaming service called Restream. And I forgot to turn off my text messages. You can see this right now. So I think if I did this correctly, guys, we're on Facebook on both Stacking Benjamin's page and Stacking Benjamin's Basement. And we should be on, which is our sister podcast. We should be on the Money with Friends YouTube channel. We might be on the Money with Friends Twitter channel. And we might be on some of my personal Facebook pages and possibly on LinkedIn. I don't know. It's a little overwhelming, Jamila.
There's a lot going on. I don't know how you check all that. If people, I guess, just comment. Can you see, does everything get conglomerated into one chat if people are commenting?
So it's my third time using Restream, which we really like so far, and it's Jamila's first time. So we're going to give a little briefing. So if anyone is out there watching, because we came out kind of unannounced, we put out one social media post that we were going to go out at 1:00, and we were 20 minutes late because of my glitches. I had some technical issues that are resolved, had to do with Wi-Fi, not with Restream. And good. We've got Jacqueline here from Atlanta. You're on Facebook. I'm wondering, Jacqueline, which Facebook you're on, because as I mentioned, we have a few, and I'm curious to know that they're all working. I can check them afterwards, but it's tough for me to check them live. So let us know, anyone out there, which channels you're watching us on, so that we can help learn this system better. Jamila is here with me. We're both in New York.
Yep, New York. Don't mind me. I'm actually having my lunch. So
yes, we're both moms, so we're multitasking a lot. I consider it a huge victory that I made my child a pizza before this actually happened. And the other kids, everybody else had their lunch. So, good. Mike is there. So YouTube is working, and we'll see. So thank you for the feedback. Doc G, yes, my personal Facebook feed is working. And we have somebody on Stacking Benjamin's Facebook page.
Okay.
This is so awesome. Okay, good. So we're going to talk about we're going to do 2 Money with Friends shows today. This is your third go around.
Yeah.
So you're a veteran now. What are you tell us a bit about what's going on with you these days. You can see I'm a little bit flustered because we're getting a nice amount of people saying hi from all the different channels. This is huge. We're usually on one channel, and like I said, I think we could be on as many as 6 different platforms right now. So while everyone's gathering and saying hi, give us an update on your life and journey to launch and what's been going on.
Yeah, so I'm Jamila from Journey to Launch podcast and platform, and what's going on right now. So I thought I would be taking August easy. That's not the case. I have so many exciting projects that I'm working on behind the scenes. Some I can't really talk about public yet, but they'll come to light soon. But otherwise, I am just preparing to schedule some podcast recording. So with my podcast, batch record. And so I have interviews scheduled there's episodes out until the end of August. So I need to start getting back into the groove of things and getting more people on to interview and recording some solo shows. So working on that and just, summer with the kids. I have 3 small kids, and right now they're on their iPads because that's the only way they would not come in here. So just pray that they don't come running in here. But
they can come if they come. Life. Hey, it's work from home these days, right?
Exactly. Hey, we have to make it work, right? Parents out there, you just have to do what you have to do.
Absolutely. My child, I'm lucky. These days it's gotten to the point where I think it's good if he's only on one screen at a time. The worst is when they're sitting there and they're on 2 or 3 screens at a time. So your kids are a littler, Jamila. You have more control. I have a 13-year-old now, and he can literally be on his computer with one game, then he's on the Xbox on the big screen TV, and then he's got the phone there. So there can be multiple screen time going on. But I'm working on coming up with some kind of a system for when school starts, because we're going to have to crack down in some way. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, that's definitely, maybe we could talk with parents here if they have suggestions or just what they've been doing with their kids, to balance getting work done and keeping them occupied.
Yes. Maybe a psychic can tell us what to do. So quick preview of the stories that we're going to talk about. We would both love to have your questions and your comments as we go through the different stories. You guys know how to do it on the different platforms. Just leave your comments there. And also questions that you could just ask Jamila, questions in general. She is a wealth of knowledge. And you can also, of course, get that from her on Journey to Launch. So the first story we're going to talk about is about psychics and how their business is booming in the pandemic. And then the second story is going to be about maybe if you want to make a shift in your investing and you want to think about international stocks. And I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see what everyone has to say about that.
Yeah, anything about psychics and money should be interesting, right?
Definitely. All right. Let me just look. So, Jamila, are you seeing the messages? I should just ask you that. Are you seeing our chat stream here?
I do. I mean, the last thing
awesome.
I see is from Ron saying,
Me
hey,
too.
hey, on Facebook. Okay.
Hey. I wonder, Ron, let us know, everyone, when you come on. Oh, good. So, wait. Matt is on Money with Friends. I don't think Money with Friends has a separate Facebook page. We have Money with Friends has a YouTube page. We've been kind of camping out on the Stacking Benjamins page because that's how the thing. So I'll have to figure out which one he's on. But we definitely, I'm curious. So if you're on the Stacking Benjamins Basement Facebook page, my personal page, my just Bobbi Rebell author page might be on there. I'm not even sure. The YouTube page and Twitter. Let us know. Twitter we just added today, so I'm really curious if anyone is seeing us on Twitter or Periscope, which are both kind of the same thing these days. So let us know where you're seeing us. Ron, so a wife will be at home with 10-year-olds who's elected to take a break from Facebook to help digital learning. Yes. Digital. We're all going to have to help with digital learning. Yes. I don't know. Are your kids? Do you know if anyone? Well, your kids are so little. Is your big boy going to school this fall?
Well, they both are. So I have a 6.
Okay.
So I have 3 kids. For anyone who doesn't know, 6, 4, and 2 years old. The 6-year-old is going to first grade, and the 4-year-old is going to pre-K. So they both are supposed to be in school in September.
And I guess we don't know in New York. We actually don't know what's happening with the schools here. So we'll see. As of now, my son is doing virtual learning until November. So
yeah, we're doing probably a hybrid. So we'll see.
Yes, we will see. Okay. Let's do an episode. All right, guys, do your thing. Bring your questions and comments. We also did an Instagram poll on the psychic story. So we'll bring that into here as well. All right. On this episode of Money with Friends, who could have predicted it? Why psychics are having a moment during the pandemic. We'll talk about it with Journey to Launch's Jamila Souffrant. It is Tuesday, August 11th. This is Money with Friends. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast. I am certified financial planner, Bobbi Rebell, host of the Financial Grown Up podcast, coming to you from my very grown up kitchen in New York City.
And hi, I'm Jamila Souffrant from Journey to Launch, the podcast, the brand, the blog, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York.
This is the Money News Show that includes commentary on recent headlines and stories with thought leaders from across the financial landscape. Like Journey to Launch podcast host Jamila Souffrant, we break those stories down into what matters to you, our friends, and we leave you with a takeaway to make it your own. This episode of Money with Friends is sponsored by Netgear. Ready for the best Wi-Fi ever? Find out what makes Netgear America's #1 choice for Wi-Fi at netgear.com/best Wi-Fi. That is netgear.com/best Wi-Fi. Jamila, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Bobbi.
It's been a few weeks. Give us a quick update for the podcast, what you've been up to. It's August. Oh my goodness.
I know,
so
crazy.
Fast.
It's crazy. So it's funny. This actually, this past weekend I updated, I have my bio that says how many downloads the podcast, so the Journey to Launch podcast gets. And we just passed the 1.7 million download mark. So that's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Tell us a little bit about Journey to Launch and what makes it so special?
Yeah, so Journey to Launch, it was born from my desire to reach financial independence and freedom, recognizing that the existing platforms out there, they were good, they were great, because I listened to a lot of those podcasts and read those blogs too, but felt that there was a voice missing. You know, there was someone that needed to translate this idea, this concept about financial independence and freedom into something more relatable. So going beyond the budgeting, which is great, and the basics of finance, like let's talk about like lifestyle, like the life you want to live and how finances play into that and reaching financial freedom and independence. So my platform talks about that journey that launched to financial independence and then, you know, achieving it, enjoying the journey along the way. And then I share my own personal journey because I'm still on the path myself.
But you're doing very well on the path. And I don't think we needed a psychic to predict that. I could have predicted when I met you. The podcast was still in its infancy then. And I am not surprised at the huge success that you have had. But on that note, let's see. We're going to talk psychics. That was a hint here. Let's see which one of our friends is going to lead us into our headline today.
All right. So title of this is called Business is Booming for New York City Psychics Amid COVID-19 Pandemic. This is by Julie Coleman. Let's start. So it says, who could have seen this coming? While storefronts are going bust across the Big Apple due to the coronavirus pandemic, New York psychics and fortune tellers say they are seeing more clients and making more money than ever before. Unlike most businesses, they thrive in times of uncertainty and despair. When there's a big change in the world or more uncertainty in the world, that is when people look for certainty. Psychic Betsy LaFleur told The Post. Everyone now wants more certainty, and yes, that is when people turn to psychics. LaFleur moved upstate during the pandemic, but still performs her services virtually for clientele based largely in the city. Her prices are steeper than most, $9.97 for an hour-long reading, but she says it keeps the steep uptick in those seeking her guidance. New Yorkers who've never turned to the occult before are now seeking out spiritual guidance. Each village psychic, Kathleen Lee, used to largely serve tourists, but her visitors are gone, so her newly reopened business has seen more locals desperate to find their way in this new normal than ever before. I'm in 30 years and I've never had so many clients from the same block or the same neighborhood, she said. Even medical professionals are getting on it, according to Manhattan psychic Marion Hedger, whose businesses has been absolutely nuts amid the outbreak. I've seen quite a few medical people, doctors, people like that at my office, said Hedger, who charges $85 for a half an hour reading and $165 for an hour, and said her weekly earnings grew from $1,000 pre-pandemic to $2,000. Of course, none of this came as a shock to people who can predict the future. Any astrologer worth their salt knew there was going to be a before January 2020 and an after January 2020, and that life would never be quite the same again, said East Village-based astrologer Angel Idealism, citing a rare conjunction of Saturn and Pluto as the cause of the disturbance. And unlike any workers, soothsayers say don't have much to worry about as they are they getting sick from their customers. I'm a psychic, so I know if they're sick, says Catherine Marks, who has been seeing double, sometimes triple her normal number of clients in virtual readings and in person at Namaste Brooklyn in Union Square. People are sent to my table, and if they're sent, they're not going to be sick. I'm the real deal. Psychic Paula Roberts said she initially saw a flurry of anxious customers seeking guidance, especially their careers and financial situations. And the most common query, when will the pandemic end? If there's one basic question in round terms, it's when can we get our lives back, she said. Who isn't terribly anxious about whatever it is, whether you're still in business, whether you can pay the rent, whether your children are going back to school?
Most psychics were cautious to pinpoint a specific date or way the pandemic will end, but some, including Marks, predicted that the crisis will slowly start to abate in January as advances in medicine are made. Idealism sees a great ray of hope coming during the winter solstice in late December. But COVID-19 isn't the only thing on customers' minds. Brooklyn astrologer and psychic Kim Allen says she's been giving more relationship advice than usual these days. People have been panicked, she says. Not so much for career, but for love, said Allen, who estimates a 35% increase in clients since the pandemic, often from lovers in new relationships separated by quarantine. Quote, love is really important. I think people were really feeling the sting of isolation. Allen also claims to have saved a few marriages strained by pandemic stress by giving phone readings to both spouses and, quote, looking at the truth in their tarot cards. This part I put in bold. People kind of understood that they really couldn't control their whole financial situation and that it was really more important to be with a partner and have someone to love. But for clients, it's just nice to get answers in a time that there are so few, even if they're not real. Plus, it's cheaper than therapy. Quote, I think with traditional therapy, it's like people just talk at me. Whereas with psychics, it's kind of like I'm getting questions answered, said Ariel Evans, who suffers from chronic anxiety and frequently visited psychics long before the pandemic, especially those at the Namaste bookshop. Quote, it might not be real, maybe it's not, but I'm still getting those questions answered for me, and it just calms my anxiety and it reassures my thoughts. Jamila, what are your thoughts? By the way, this article was in the New York Post. I don't remember if we said that, by Julie Coleman.
You know, this makes all sense, right? There are a lot of unknowns right now for people, and what a lot of people want right now is just some assurances, some guidance to just know everything's going to be okay. And with that, who can do that but a psychic, I guess, like if you, and so I don't really see this as a big surprise. It's interesting. I always think how much people spend on a psychic, even though it's cheaper than therapy and it makes them feel good. Like I'm all for doing whatever works, except for just being careful that you're not going overboard, as with anything else. Because sometimes I've heard of these stories, these horror stories, where because you're looking for so much comfort and solace, you may end up overspending or getting taken advantage of by some of these people. So as long as you're going in there and you're still being smart with how much you're going to spend, and there's a limit to that, but it makes you feel good, then go ahead, do whatever works for you.
I think this is something that could be considered entertainment. It could be considered, they talk about it as a kind of therapy. If yoga for X dollars per hour, $50 an hour, whatever, to get a virtual teacher live or something, whatever it may be, is going to calm you down, great. And if this is going to calm you down, that's great. The woman talks about it, relieving her anxiety. On the other hand, what happens if the psychic predicts something by a certain date and then it doesn't happen? Is that going to increase your anxiety? And certainly, I think spending $997, which is what one of these people charge for an hour-long reading, that will increase my financial anxiety big time. That is a tremendous amount of money. So I think you make a really good point that if it's in your budget and it's going to help you, that's fine. But I do think that some of these prices sound really high. I mean, I think it speaks to, people just searching for answers because we have so many unknowns, including even we were talking before we came on about whether our children will be in person in school these days. I mean, we just don't know. We can't plan. We can't predict anything.
I know. I mean, that's why I said, some people are more prone or would more go to this way, and it helps them, right? And so I'm not ever going to be against something that legitimately, even if it's a placebo effect, like even if it just takes someone outside of yourself telling you something that you may already know or it's not true, but it makes you feel better about yourself, then, hey, like you said, just charge it up to entertainment or something else that helps you.
Exactly. And there is definitely something to be said for a placebo effect because it can make people feel much better. So yeah, we did put this out to our Instagram audience, which is at Money Friends Pod. We asked them, would you trust a psychic's advice on money related stuff? What do you think they said? This is a gimme, but go for it.
No, most of them probably said no.
Yeah, we got 97% no, but some people did say yes. So, let's see. We did also ask them for their comments. And Green at Home said, same as playing the lottery. You could just throw away money and it adds a little fun. I don't know. Is throwing away money fun? Well, I guess gambling. People have fun gambling.
Some people are all about that. Like I said, I don't see myself going to a psychic and spending money in that way. But I'm sure I have someone in my life that would. Again, my biggest concern would be don't spend your rent money. Don't spend something you need to survive. If you have the extra cash and you just need it to feel comfortable, give it a try.
We have some questions and comments coming in from our live audience on various social media channels. We're both on Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitter today. We have Ron here. You want to grab that comment?
Okay, so I think the comment is, you are not in control as you think you are. $250, please. And Alexis, Alexis says $9.97 an hour. Sounds like they are preying on the most financially and emotionally vulnerable. Not cool.
I would definitely agree with that. I think that's a price point that is, for me, not about entertainment. I think that is preying on fear and desperation, which a lot of people have at this time.
Yeah, I just feel like there's so many other ways to spend that money and even still go that route, right? Like you value shop for psychics. I don't know. I'm sure there are other ones that are not that expensive, especially now you have access to virtual ones. And then now, because I'm just learning more about, people who are into crystals and yoga and meditation. I just feel like there's other ways that you could also invest and spend money to feel centered and grounded. So I hope that people who would spend $9.97 an hour, either they can really afford it, but I can see how so many people probably are getting taken advantage of, but that they also are looking into other options that can help them.
Have you ever visited a psychic?
I have not. Nope.
Do you have any friends that go?
I don't know that they would. I feel like sometimes part of that is like people wouldn't even tell you because like I'm not into that kind of stuff. So I feel like if I had a friend, like they probably wouldn't even tell me. They'd probably be like, we don't want maybe Jamila judging me, even though I try not to judge. Like, but I'm sure someone I know is like.
What about like the horoscopes? I mean, because that's another thing. People will say, "Oh, well, you're a Virgo or you're a Scorpion or whatever, so this is your month for something." I mean, are you into that? Are people into, because people do predict based on that stuff.
And again, like
a lot of people do it,
right? Like I just feel like there's a whole realm out there of people who think differently and really abide by like that. Those things are true. So astrology, I mean, I don't really follow it to a T, but I know people like follow that, their signs and what they should be doing. Full moons or what's that whole like people don't like doing work around a certain moon. I forgot which one.
I don't know
if it's a certain type of moon or something about regression, like you never launch or do anything in that time. So people actually like live by that. And again, if it works for you to think that way, fine. But if it stresses you out, it's making you drain all your money, then that's not a good thing. So.
Right. And that's the other thing is somebody had commented in the article, well, at least I'm getting my questions answered. But what if your questions are answered in a way that create more anxiety? What if it's telling you that you are going to have financial hardship or that someone you love is going to have financial hardship or health problems? That could make you, and just by the life itself, not all the answers can be positive. It just can't. That could create more anxiety. So I don't know. I have not paid for a psychic, but I've had psychic readings at parties and people's homes, knowing people that are somewhat into them, that swear by the psychic that they visit every so often. And I think it's really interesting. I think that they always have a lot to say that's very vague. And I always wonder because they have said things that are very specific. And I wonder if they're tipped off if they get given, because it's at a party setting. I don't fully trust that the host doesn't tell them certain things. I don't know, because they've been knowing too much, or maybe they fish around and they look for reactions of familiarity in your face when they say this happened to you in the past or something like that. I'm always skeptical, but I do have people in my life that really do believe in that. And it's interesting. And these are educated people. So I don't know. It's not for me. It's not for, like I said, it's not for 97% of our Instagram audience based on our informal, completely unscientific poll. But if it's entertainment and it's in your budget, we wish you the best, right?
Yeah. Do what works for you, I guess. Just don't spend your last.
Don't spend your last dime. Maybe don't spend your first dime either. But maybe that's your entertainment budget since we're not going to the movies that much anymore. Maybe we're going drive-in movies. I don't know. But beware. All right, we're going to do our takeaways in 1 minute. But first, I want to talk to everybody about Wi-Fi, because actually the reason that we were late with our recording today is because I was having some struggles with my connection. So if your Wi-Fi is struggling because we're all home, the kids are streaming games, the grownups are working, there's video chats going on like never before, and of course, it's all at once. When you're connected to your world by Wi-Fi, you need to make sure it is the best. So you can bring your Wi-Fi up to speed with Orbi Wi-Fi 6 from Netgear. Orbi Wi-Fi 6 is the best and latest in Wi-Fi. It covers your entire home with the fastest Wi-Fi for uninterrupted streaming, video calling, and working and learning from home on more devices than ever before in any part of the house. It's Wi-Fi perfectly engineered. Ready for the best Wi-Fi ever? Find out what makes Netgear's America's #1 choice for Wi-Fi at netgear.com/best Wi-Fi. That is netgear.com/best Wi-Fi. And with that, Jamila, what is your takeaway?
Okay. Takeaway here is my motto is to go with whatever works for you, but just like anything, be cautious. Don't go overboard. Use discernment in how much you spend and who you spend your money with.
Absolutely. My favorite line in this is, it's cheaper than therapy. So if it makes you feel good, treat it like anything else. Maybe do this instead of therapy if it relieves your anxiety, but just be aware of false hope. My prediction, business will continue to be strong, but only because, honestly, as we talked about, there's a lot of desperate people that are looking for hope, not just answers. I think they want answers that give them hope and that calm their anxiety, which unfortunately might not always be the truth. Sometimes the truth is going to be really harsh. And I think there's been a lot of harsh realities in this pandemic and the economic turmoil that is following it. But anything you can do to get through, guys, absolutely do it. But stick to your budget. Listen to Miss Jamila. She's all about budgeting. You talk a lot about budgeting on Journey to Launch, right?
I do, but yeah, as a guidance tool for you, but not strictly like you can't have fun kind of budget.
No, if you could do this, you know what? Yeah, like maybe if this was instead of, a different budget line item, you could do psychic once a month instead of doing something else once a month that you used to do that you can't do because of the pandemic. Maybe you had sports tickets or something like that, and this is something that you want to replace it with. But you may not get the news that you want. If the psychic is always going to be honest, I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, before we wrap up, tell us where people can find out more about you and Journey to Launch.
All right. So I'm Journey to Launch on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can follow me there. If you're a podcast listener or not, check out the Journey to Launch podcast. If you're listening to this, and hopefully you're a podcast listener, but you can find it wherever you listen to this amazing podcast. And if you join me on the journey, you become a journeyer. That's what I call my tribe, my people that are on the journey to financial independence and freedom.
Very well said. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
We are going to, we've got comments in our audience still coming through. More babies are actually born on a full moon. I guess that's referencing to your comments.
I don't. Yep. I'm sure that they are.
all kinds of stuff happening there. All right. Well, we love our Facebook, YouTube, Twitter audience. All you guys for joining us live. Everyone listening, please go to our website, moneywithfriendspodcast.com, where you can learn where to follow us live. But basically all the channels at Money Friends Pod and Instagram as well is also that. That is where we do our polls and our questions, where you can also get a shout out in the show. And please review our show on Apple Podcasts as well. We love you guys and we really appreciate your support. And we adore you, Jamila. Thanks for being with us. Come back tomorrow. How about that?
I'll be there.
We're going to talk about international stocks and whether we should all be paying a little more attention to them. On that note, bye everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. All right. Thanks everyone. I just realized, you know what I can do on this new Restream? I'm going to put this here. I can write, follow Jamila at, what's your Journey to Launch?
Yeah, Journey to Launch.
This Journey to Launch on Twitter or at Instagram, both, right?
Both on Twitter and Instagram. Yep.
Okay. So guys, I'm going to put that up, everyone, when Jamila says, and then I'm going to say subscribe to her podcast. So now I'll practice. Let me practice putting this up. Add caption. So let's see if this works. Yes, it works. See, isn't that great? I think I have more. So this new, like I said, Restream that we switched to from our previous streaming app has new and I believe better functionalities that we're using. So we're able to do different things. So that's pretty cool. So even though we're live to you guys behind the scenes recording our audio podcast, we can do these things, which is, I think, very cool. Yeah. So everyone got that message. Everyone make sure if you are watching us behind the scenes here that you are subscribed to Journey to Launch and that you follow her in all the places at Journey to Launch. Okay, let's do the Wednesday show. Let me just get our stuff ready. Here we go. All right. So this is the show for August 12th. On this episode of Money with Friends, why it might be time to look outside the U.S. for the best stock market investments. It is Wednesday, August 12th. This is Money with Friends. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast. I'm certified financial planner, Bobbi Rebel, host of the Financial Grown Up podcast, coming to you from my very grown up kitchen in New York City.
Hi, I'm Jamila Souffrant, Journey to Launch podcast, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York.
This is the Money News Show that includes commentary on recent headlines and stories with thought leaders from across the financial landscape, like top-rated podcast host Jamila Souffrant of Journey to Launch, who, by the way, recently hit 1.7 million downloads, but who's counting? We break those stories down into what matters to you, our friends, and we leave you with a takeaway to make it your own. By the way, this episode of Money with Friends is sponsored by NordPass. Let the NordPass password manager remember all your complex logins, autofill online forms, and generate strong passwords stress-free. It's only $2.49 a month. That's crazy. That's cheaper than coffee, guys. You also get an additional month free. Go to nordpass.com/MWF or use the code MWF so that they know that we sent you and you can support the show. And we need your support. And we love having the support of Jamila here for the second day in a row. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me again.
We are going to be talking today about investing in non-US stocks. Is that something you've been hearing a lot about? I feel like it's just starting to, it's kind of been out of fashion for a while.
Yeah, but I think based on the article and trends, you can see why it's coming back and people are talking about it more.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see which one of our friends is going to lead us into the headline.
All right. So, title of the article: Why It Might Be Time to Invest in Non-U.S. Stocks. This is by Dan Weil. Hope I'm saying your name right, Dan. Stocks in foreign developed markets as well as emerging markets have greatly underperformed U.S. shares for years, pushing U.S. stock valuations far above foreign valuations. Even last year, when stocks were strong worldwide, the average U.S. stock mutual fund or exchange traded fund rose 28%, outpacing the average international stocks fund at 23%, according to Refinitiv Lipper data. This year, U.S. stock funds were down 2.1% on average through July, and international stocks were down 5.5%. Now, the question is whether valuations, along with shifting global economic fundamentals, make foreign stocks an attractive investment, perhaps finally justifying the long-held advice that U.S. investors keep at least a portion of their portfolio in overseas shares or funds. Many investing professionals say the answer to that is yes. If you're investing for the next 10 years, valuations are compelling to invest overseas, says Stephen Violin, a portfolio manager at FL Putnam Investment Management Company in Wesley, Massachusetts. On the economic front, many countries are further along than the U.S. in emerging from the coronavirus lockdowns. That has helped put some of their economies in a stronger position than the U.S., many investing pros say. Numerous countries also have adopted successful economic stimulus plans. Some investment managers are particularly enthusiastic about emerging markets where stocks already have outperformed their U.S. counterparts over the past 3 months. With a long-term view of where the world growth is likely to emanate from, emerging markets is where you might like to place your bets, says Karim Ahmed, a financial advisor at Cerity Partners in Chicago. They have young and vibrant economies growing faster than developed markets. The labor pools of emerging market countries should grow faster than those of developing nations, providing fuel for economic growth because emerging market nations have younger populations than developed countries, he notes.
Let's just pause for a moment because that's a lot of information that I think is really interesting. I mean, we're talking about not just things that are tied to the pandemic, but big shifts in where these economies are going and the demographics, right?
Yeah, I mean, even the note about the younger demographics, that there are more younger people in these emerging countries makes sense. I read an article, I think I'd sent this to you as a potential one about Social Security in the U.S. Not really being able to be sustainable. And part of that reason was there's actually not as many people being born nowadays, which was actually surprising to me. And that the younger generation, like, it's not as much, or it's, it's not enough to support kind of the older generations that would need the Social Security. So that to me is all interesting. And it's almost like I'm curious to also just dig deeper into why that is.
Absolutely. By the way, apologies for that. We do record this show live. All right. We do have comments from our audience. We have Kevin here. Do you want to grab that comment, Jamila?
Sure. It says, I can see the rationale. The U.S. Dollar has risen dramatically due to the global panic. However, given macro trends are falling, it can make sense to hold at least part of your portfolio in international companies.
Yeah. And I think emphasis on part. We're not talking about shifting so much out of U.S. stocks into foreign stocks. We're talking about an asset reallocation, maybe putting a little more in international stocks and maybe thinking about having less in, and we're reading select parts of the article, I should say, but a lot of the philosophy is not necessarily to have less in US stocks, but maybe less in areas that aren't expected to perform as much. And one area that a lot of experts have been talking about is fixed income, because as rates are literally at historic lows, rock bottom, you're not really getting the safety that you might normally be getting in a fixed income, because unless we get lower into negative territory, I don't even know. I didn't even know how you could possibly really get real returns, and you're certainly not getting returns in cash. So the idea is maybe start looking internationally with things that you might have had in areas that aren't really expected to perform as well. Maybe you would put some from US stocks in there, but it's not a question of divesting out of all US stocks. It's not that kind of thing. It's just a question of maybe making it part of your portfolio.
Right.
The article from the Wall Street Journal goes on to talk about market psychology, and let's just read a little bit about that. It says psychology will also play a role in lifting foreign stocks compared to U.S. stocks, says Jeffrey Kleintop, chief global investment strategist at Charles Schwab. Quote, it's almost more behavioral than fundamental, he says. After a decade, whatever markets led in investor expectations get high in value. And then recession resets expectations. Where expectations were highest, valuations come down the most. Market history has played out that way for the past 50 years, with the direction of U.S. and foreign markets flipping at the end of every economic cycle, which often lasts about 10 years, Mr. Kleintop says. So he anticipates foreign stocks will outpace U.S. shares for the next decade. And I've actually had the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Kleintop when I worked at Reuters. I think he's very, very smart. Again, we are not giving anybody our investment advice. We're reading what he's saying, but it does make a lot of sense that international has been out of favor for quite some time, and therefore the valuations make it much more affordable to get in. Whereas U.S. stocks, by some measures, have been rising. Some people say irrationally, given that we have this recession going on, so many people out of work, and yet stocks have continued to rise, albeit the indexes are focused on industries that are not as negatively impacted like technology and pharmaceuticals, but you still have this sort of disconnect going on with U.S. stocks.
Yeah, and so the correction, as he says, like that happens and can last for 10 years. I think I'm curious to know. So that would make then, wouldn't it make, since the last recession or the market in 2008 crash, that 2018 would have been still the time that emerging markets would have been outpacing? Maybe I read that part wrong,
right.
But wouldn't that have meant that in the past 10 years, then, unless he wasn't talking about this last recession or
I think that there's a flip back and forth every 10 years is what he's saying.
Okay.
So it's tricky, but there's also, I think earlier in the article, you're talking about the demographic trends. And I think that's also a really interesting thing to watch. Now, we did put out to our Instagram audience a quick question on this, and this is completely unscientific, but it is interesting. We asked them, where are the best investments right now? And we said United States or overseas. What do you think our audience said, Jamila?
Overseas.
It's interesting. They did not. Now, again, completely unscientific. It was 70% United States, 30% overseas. The poll was only out there for a few hours, though. So very much just unscientific. But I think in some ways, people are wary of overseas investing. People are concerned, and they have valid concerns about things like political instability and not, kind of feeling like your money's far away. And the reality is that we are all entranced sometimes by the rise of the market. And the U.S. market has been so strong for so long. And even when it took a few big steps back, early spring, when the pandemic was first becoming very widespread, it came back relatively soon in the time span. So I think that people have tremendous confidence in U.S. stocks right now.
Yeah, as evidenced by the bounce back, right? I think we're back now to pre-corona levels, right?
Yeah. Now, first of all, okay, I have to read this because there's a reference back to Tuesday's show for those of you who listened to it. If you haven't listened to it, I need you to go back and listen to it. But we do have one comment saying, my psychic told me. Because we were talking about psychics and getting money advice from psychics. And then we have another comment, safest, most predictable investments are in the U.S. currently. And that's from, I can't really read it, CMM copy one. I'm not sure. But anyway, there is a feeling of security. I think people like to invest in what they know, and the U.S. is what U.S. investors know.
Right. I agree.
Let's do one more section of this, talking about allocation strategy, because I do want to get that in because we were talking about allocation. So how should investors interested in foreign stocks allocate their money? A broad, diversified exposure to countries and industries gives investors a chance to participate in the upside of foreign stocks while potentially damping declines, analysts say. Quote, you don't need to fancy, Mr. Kleintop says. I'm sorry, let me read that again. You don't need to get fancy, Kleintop says. He figures that including one broad exchange-traded fund for developed markets and one for emerging markets in a portfolio would do the trick. That would give investors a chance to tweak their weighting between the two and as emerging market stocks often outperform developed market stocks early in the economic cycle before lagging later. So it's basically saying, keep it simple, tweak what you're doing, but don't go crazy, which I think is pretty good advice.
Yeah, and I am also like a basic, investor, right? So even like you said, like my confidence is in what I know. And so for me, it's really like, I usually like, again, no investment advice here, but I'm an index like girl. Like I just like index funds, US traded ones. But I do like, I'm not sure if you read this part, but in the article, it talks about there are options in also the emerging markets. You can do EFTs and index funds with that, low cost ones too. Because one of my biggest things is looking at the fee associated with investing in these emerging markets. I know just anecdotally, I had when I worked at my corporate job and I had options to pick stocks and my portfolio. I remember being invested in emerging markets, but this was years ago. And when I looked at the return based on just like a fixed income, it was stocks, US stocks, the return wasn't even like that much more. And I had to pay so much more fees on the emerging markets allocation. So I switched it. I just got out of it because I'm like, this does not show why I should stay in this for all this extra fees. And so I think that is just important to recognize is that you're going to do it. Yeah, it might be outpacing it, but also just looking at the fees, like, does it make sense when you do the math?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up, Jamila, because it is important when you're shopping for an ETF or a mutual fund to make sure you understand the costs associated with it, whether it's US stocks or overseas. But they certainly could use that as a reason to have higher fees. And there's really no reason you should have higher fees these days. So everybody, please look out for that if you do decide to make a change in how you are allocating your investments. All right, we're going to get our takeaways ready. But first, I want to talk to everybody about NordPass. So I can never remember my passwords. Shocker, everybody. So I, of course, did what everyone does, or not everyone, but certainly I did, which is not a good thing, which is basically make everything the same password. And not only that, I made it a password that's a word. I made it a password that's easy for me to remember, that makes total sense. And really that not only could I always guess it, but pretty much the bad guys could also guess it. And guess what happened? I got hacked. So they got into my email. I got a ton of spam. I'm still battling the spam. I have had things charged to my credit card that I've had to fight to get off. I now had a second credit card. The return one, the new one they gave me, was also hacked. It's just been a mess. So people, get your password act together. This is so important. Don't be me. Protect yourself. You need to get the better passwords. And then you can get NordPass. Their password manager will remember all of your complex logins. It's going to autofill online forms. It's going to generate the stronger passwords, which you may not be able to think of yourself. And the most important thing is it is all stress-free. And it's basically for less than you pay for coffee, at least if you're in New York City. Maybe you guys can get better deals somewhere else. I don't know. But anyway, it's $249 a month, plus you get an additional month free. So it's 50% off NordPass if you use our code. So you go to nordpass.com/MWF, as in money with friends, or you can just use the code MWF. And that way they know that we sent you, and you also help to support the show. Let's do our takeaways. Jamila, you want to go first? Or you want to have the final word?
I can go first. Okay, so I think it's important for people to be aware if they want to be more sophisticated investors about these options. I always just go back to getting to the basics because I just understand that there are so many people who are just trying to get comfortable with investing. And so if you're already comfortable, if you know your risk tolerance and you know what your options are, then yes, look into diversifying and trying to chase more returns. But like a lot of people that I know, a lot of it is just getting started. So make sure you're good at the basics first and that you're just even investing. That's always going to be my first kind of takeaway when it comes to stuff like this.
I think that is so well said and so important. I mean, we have Annette in our audience here talking about how she loves index funds. I mean, go with what is going to be comfortable with you. So thank you for that. I chose the story because, well, as we both said, we don't give specific investment advice here. I do like for our money friends to be paying attention to the big picture trends. And just to remind everyone that having a long-term strategy does not mean being complacent to longer term trends. It doesn't mean you never make a change. It means you don't make a change sort of reacting to something that could be very short term. So I encourage everyone to go to our website, moneywithfriendspodcast.com, for the link and read the entire Wall Street Journal piece. Just go to the schedule area and the date of this podcast that it was first posted, and then do your own homework. Read the article, read what other information is going to make sense for you at your favorite sources, and then make the best asset allocation strategy for your goals.
I agree.
Thank you. That sound of silence. Anyway, Jamila, thank you so much 2 days in a row for joining us. Tell us more about what's going on over at Journey to Launch.
Yeah, as always, I have new episodes that come out every Wednesday. So check the podcast out. You can listen to the podcast wherever you listen to this podcast if you're listening. And also joining me on social media. I'm at Journey to Launch over there. Lots of great content coming out and past things that you can dive right into and get acclimated with the podcast and Journey to Launch.
Well, in your podcast, when you say library, you have how many episodes? You have 1.7 million downloads. Let's just say that again.
Yeah.
And how many episodes have you done? You really have a full library of financial information for people.
Oh, yeah. So I think this week we'll have 168 episodes that have been released. And I should say this. So if you want to get into Journey to Launch, just like, oh, there's so many episodes, I don't know where to start. I have certain topics I prefer more. I do have a jumpstart guide that people can tap into if they just want to get a quick overlay of the best episodes, the most downloaded by topic, and then my personal faves and some more things about financial independence. And you can go to journeytolaunch.com/jumpstart or text launch to 33777.
All right. Next time we record, we're going to actually put that. By the way, we record this live on both Facebook, and you can go to the Money with Friends YouTube channel and Twitter. So we actually have little lower thirds telling people where to go. So check us out there too. We'll put everything on the screen next time. We got some things on the screen, but more importantly, you can go to our website, moneywithfriendspodcast.com, to get all of that information and also learn more about Jamila and all of our incredible co-hosts that we have there. And also, as I mentioned, to get links to the articles that we speak about. And please follow us on social media at Money Friends Pod is our handle on Instagram and on Twitter, where you can answer polls. On Instagram is where you can answer polls and questions and be part of the show. And also, please subscribe to our still relatively new YouTube channel, which needs a little love. So we really want to encourage you guys. Jamila's laughing at me. I'm just begging you guys to come be part of our YouTube channel, because we're still beginners over there, but we're trying really hard, and we love YouTube, and we're having a great time there. So come join us at Money with Friends. Just search for Money with Friends when you go to YouTube, and you'll find us. And thanks very much. And Joe will be back tomorrow with a fantastic show. Bye.
Bye. First of all, are we still live? I love that Kevin said he texted lunch to 33777. I think I hope the password is actually launch. I might have messed that up. Is it launch? It might be
lunch or launch. He wrote lunch.
No, he wrote lunch, but I'm trying to think. I don't even know my own my keyword. It's probably it might be something that it might be no, I think it's launch. It's launch. I got it right.
Okay.
I remember it's funny.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, Joe, I forgot who made the joke, but someone said, I think the first time I was on the Stacking Benjamin show, someone made a joke about it could be Journey to Lunch. Like that could be what the other name could have been for the. So basically this whole lunch thing, because launch kind of is similar to lunch.
You should have both.
A joke.
But you need to have both URLs so that if somebody mistypes it, they still come to you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I did get Journey to the number 2 launch. I had that. Well, actually, someone actually took it from me and tried to redirect people from it. And I approached them. I approached them and they gave it back to me because I was like, really?
How did they steal it? They stole it.
No, well, I didn't own it at the moment. And I didn't think to put, so my website is Journey to TO launch.
Right.
And then they registered Journey, the number 2 launch. And I realized it and I contacted them and they knew that they shouldn't have done that. So they gave it to me. They gave me it back.
Good. I'm glad you didn't have some kind of a legal battle. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Someone that's not really using it, I think, has moneywithfriends.com. So that's why we went with moneywithfriendspodcast.com. But I think we have Money with Friends on the other ones like .net and I don't know. A lot of them. Everyone, whatever. We're just spiraling out. All right, we're going to say goodbye. We're on so many channels right now. I'm going to say goodbye to Facebook. I don't know if anyone ever talked to us from Twitter, so I'm not sure we were on Twitter. We'll check later, but we were definitely on a bunch of Facebook and we were definitely on YouTube. So thank you guys for all of your comments, support, cheering us on, all good things. Bye, guys.
Bye.